Cat brings stray kittens to woman's door. Their bond changes everything. How will this story unfold? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. The night had fallen softly over the quiet suburban street, casting long shadows on the neatly trimmed lawns and flower beds. A cool breeze whispered through the leaves, carrying with it the crisp scent of autumn. Inside her modest home, Lisa settled into her favorite armchair, a steaming cup of tea in hand. The soft hum of her living room lamp created a warm cocoon of light, but despite the cozy surroundings, a familiar weight pressed on her chest. It had been a long time since the house had felt anything but quiet. Too quiet. Lisa sighed and looked out the window, watching as the streetlight flickered and illuminated the driveway. Her thoughts drifted, as they often did, to the life she used to have. A bustling household filled with laughter, chatter, and the clattering of dishes as her family moved about. Now the silence was deafening. She had made peace with it in her own way, focusing on her garden, her work, and the occasional calls with friends. But deep down, she knew something was missing: companionship, connection. She sipped her tea and glanced at the clock. Nearly midnight. The thought of another empty day loomed ahead of her. Just as she was about to turn off the lamp and head to bed, a sound broke through the stillness. A soft, plaintive meow. Lisa froze, her ears straining to catch it again. The sound came once more, slightly louder this time. A tiny cry, high-pitched and insistent. Setting her cup down, she moved cautiously toward the front door. The meowing continued, more insistent now. It wasn't a sound of annoyance or warning. It was a cry for attention, for help. Lisa unlocked the door and opened it slowly, the hinges creaking in the still night. The porch light flickered to life, casting a soft glow on the stoop. There, sitting just outside the door, was a cat. But it wasn't just any cat. It was a calico with a striking patchwork coat of orange, black, and white. Her intelligent amber eyes staring directly at Lisa. She seemed almost to be waiting for her, as if she knew this was where she needed to be. At the calico's side, nestled in a frayed wicker basket, were 3 tiny kittens, their small bodies huddled together for warmth. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. The mother cat gave a soft chirp, her gaze unwavering, as though imploring Lisa to understand. The kittens stirred slightly, their tiny faces peeking out from the blanket that barely covered them. For a moment, Lisa simply stood there, the scene before her both surreal and oddly poignant. "Where did you come from?" Lisa murmured, crouching down to get a better look. The mother cat didn't flinch, her body language calm but deliberate. She stepped forward, just enough to nudge the basket with her nose, before retreating a step, her eyes never leaving Lisa's. It was as if she were saying, "These are yours now. Please help us." Lisa hesitated. She wasn't exactly equipped to care for animals. Her life was orderly, predictable, at least as much as it could be in its solitude. But there was something in the cat's gaze, something unspoken, that pierced through her hesitation. This wasn't just an animal seeking shelter. This was a plea. "All right," Lisa said softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Come in." The mother cat stepped aside as if understanding Lisa's invitation, her tail flicking once in approval. Carefully, Lisa picked up the basket and carried it inside. The kittens let out tiny squeaks as the warmth of the house enveloped them. The mother followed closely, her ears swiveling as she took in her new surroundings. Lisa placed the basket on the floor near the fireplace, where the faint heat from earlier still lingered. She fetched an old towel from the closet and laid it out next to the basket, hoping to make them a little more comfortable. The mother cat immediately settled onto the towel, her body curling protectively around the kittens. One by one, they nuzzled into her fur, their small bodies quivering with contentment. Lisa watched them, her heart unexpectedly full. She hadn't realized how much she missed the presence of others, even if those others were four-legged and furry. The house already felt different, as though the very air had shifted to make room for these unexpected guests. The next morning, Lisa awoke to the soft sounds of mewing. For a moment, she thought it had been a dream. The cat, the kittens, the basket. But as she made her way into the living room, there they were. The mother cat looked up at her, blinking slowly as if in greeting. Lisa knelt beside them, noting how the kittens wriggled closer to their mother for warmth. "You're real," Lisa said, her voice tinged with awe. "You really came here." The mother cat stretched, arching her back before settling down again. Lisa smiled. She couldn't explain it, but there was something comforting about their presence. She went to the kitchen, rummaging through her pantry for anything that might suffice as food. A can of tuna would have to do for now. Returning with a plate of tuna and a small bowl of water, Lisa placed them gently in front of the cat. The calico sniffed the plate cautiously before taking a tentative bite. Her kittens, still too small to eat, remained curled up in the basket. As the days turned into weeks, Lisa found herself falling into a new routine. The mother cat, whom she had named Callie, seemed to understand that Lisa was there to help. Callie would watch intently as Lisa cleaned the basket or refilled the food bowl, her eyes filled with a quiet gratitude that needed no words. The kittens began to grow, their personalities emerging like tiny blossoms. There was Whisker, the boldest of the three, who would often venture out of the basket to explore the room. Then there was Poppy, the smallest but most curious, always peeking at Lisa with wide, innocent eyes. And finally, there was Shadow, the shy one, who preferred to stay close to Callie but occasionally darted out for a playful pounce. Lisa found herself talking to them, her voice filled with warmth she hadn't felt in years. "Whisker, don't knock over the lamp," she'd say, laughing as the tiny kitten batted at the base of the lampshade. Or, "Poppy, you're going to get stuck behind the couch again," as the kitten wriggled into yet another tight spot. Callie, for her part, seemed to take it all in stride. She would sit perched on the arm of the couch, her tail wrapped neatly around her paws, watching her kittens with an air of calm authority. Occasionally, she would glance at Lisa, her eyes soft with trust. One evening, as Lisa sat on the floor watching the kittens tumble over each other in a playful heap, she felt a warmth spread through her chest. She hadn't realized how much she had missed this laughter, companionship, the simple joy of sharing her home with others. Callie padded over to her, her gaze steady. She climbed onto Lisa's lap and curled into a ball, her purring a soft, rhythmic hum that seemed to vibrate through Lisa's entire being. Lisa gently stroked Callie's fur, her fingers tracing the patterns of orange, black, and white. "Thank you," Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible. It wasn't just a thank you for the moment, for the companionship, for the warmth Callie had brought into her life. It was a thank you for the reminder that even in the quietest, loneliest corners of existence, life had a way of finding its way back in. As the days stretched into weeks, Lisa began to notice small changes in herself. Her once monotonous mornings now began with a purpose, tending to the needs of her new companions. She found herself waking up earlier, eager to hear the soft meows of Callie or the playful chirps of the kittens as they scampered around the living room. The kittens had begun to outgrow their basket, their tiny legs propelling them on clumsy adventures across the floor. Whisker, the boldest of the trio, was always the first to leap into action. He discovered a fascination with Lisa's slippers, dragging them across the room with surprising determination. Lisa couldn't help but laugh every time she found her slippers scattered in different corners of the house. "Whisker, you've got quite the imagination," she would say, shaking her head fondly. Poppy had developed an interest in Lisa's garden. Whenever Lisa left the back door open, Poppy would cautiously step outside, her tiny nose twitching as she took in the scents of lavender and rosemary. Lisa often found herself sitting in the garden with Poppy on her lap, the other kittens watching curiously from the doorway. It was during these quiet moments that Lisa realized how much the kittens had transformed her days. What once felt like an endless stretch of time now passed in a blur of activity and joy. Shadow, the shyest of the group, was slowly coming out of her shell. She would dart out from behind the couch, pounce on her siblings, and then retreat just as quickly. Lisa noticed that Shadow had a special bond with Callie. The mother cat seemed to give Shadow extra attention, grooming her more often and curling around her protectively at night. Lisa couldn't help but wonder if Shadow's timidity reminded Callie of something from her own past. One crisp autumn morning, Lisa decided it was time to take the cats to the vet. The idea of leaving the house with all 4 of them felt daunting, but she knew it was necessary. She borrowed a large pet carrier from a neighbor and gently coaxed Callie and the kittens inside. The kittens protested with tiny meows, their voices rising in a chorus of discontent. "It's for your own good," Lisa said reassuringly, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to comfort the cats or herself. The vet's office was bustling with activity when Lisa arrived. Dogs barked, cats meowed, and the occasional chirp of a bird added to the cacophony. Lisa could feel Callie tense inside the carrier, her body pressed protectively against her kittens. Lisa spoke softly to her, hoping to ease her nerves. When their turn came, the vet, a kind woman named Dr. Harper, examined each kitten with care. Whisker squirmed the most, his little paws batting at the stethoscope. Poppy was surprisingly calm, her wide eyes taking in every detail of the room. Shadow clung to Callie, her tiny body trembling slightly. "They're all healthy," Dr. Harper said with a smile. "You've done a great job caring for them." Lisa felt a wave of relief wash over her. She hadn't realized how worried she had been. "Thank you," she said, glancing at Callie, who was now watching her kittens with a mixture of pride and caution. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Harper mentioned that Callie was likely a stray who had lived a tough life before finding Lisa. "She must have really trusted you to bring her kittens to your door," the vet said, her voice tinged with admiration. Lisa nodded, the weight of those words settling over her. Callie's act of trust had been extraordinary, and Lisa felt a deep sense of responsibility to honor it. Back at home, the kittens seemed to forget their brief ordeal at the vet's office. They resumed their playful antics, chasing each other around the living room. Lisa watched them, her heart swelling with affection. She realized she couldn't imagine her life without them. They had become her family, filling the void that had lingered for so long. That evening, as Lisa prepared dinner, Callie sat perched on the counter, her amber eyes following Lisa's every move. "You're quite the supervisor, aren't you?" Lisa said, laughing softly. Callie blinked slowly, a gesture that Lisa had come to interpret as a sign of trust and contentment. After dinner, Lisa settled on the couch with a book, but her attention kept drifting to the kittens. They had claimed a corner of the living room as their own, their toys scattered across the floor. Whisker was batting at a small ball, his tail flicking with concentration. Poppy was curled up on a blanket, her tiny paws tucked under her chin. Shadow was watching them from a distance, her wide eyes filled with curiosity. Callie joined Lisa on the couch, her body pressing against Lisa's side. Lisa stroked her fur, her fingers tracing the patterns of orange, black, and white. "Thank you for choosing me," Lisa whispered. Callie purred in response, her soft vibrations filling the room. As the weeks turned into months, Lisa began to notice something remarkable. Callie had started bringing small gifts to the house: leaves, feathers, and even a shiny bottle cap. Each morning, Lisa would find a new treasure on the doormat. She couldn't help but smile at Callie's thoughtfulness. One morning, Lisa found an especially curious item on the doormat: a small, worn piece of fabric. It looked like it had been part of an old blanket. Lisa picked it up, her mind racing with questions. Where had Callie found it? And why had she brought it to Lisa? As she held the fabric in her hands, Lisa felt a pang of emotion. It was as if Callie was sharing a piece of her past, a fragment of the life she had lived before finding Lisa. The thought brought tears to Lisa's eyes. "You're full of surprises, aren't you?" Lisa said, looking down at Callie. The cat tilted her head, her amber eyes gleaming with intelligence. Lisa felt a deep connection to her, as if Callie understood her in a way that words could never express. One evening, as Lisa sat in the garden with Callie and the kittens, she found herself reflecting on how much her life had changed. The days that once felt so empty were now filled with laughter, love, and purpose. The kittens had grown stronger and more adventurous, their personalities shining brighter with each passing day. Whisker had become a little daredevil, climbing onto furniture and leaping off with fearless abandon. Poppy had taken to following Lisa around the house, her tiny tail wagging as if she were a puppy. Shadow, though still shy, had started to seek out Lisa's attention, curling up beside her on the couch in the evenings. And Callie remained the steady anchor of their little family. She watched over her kittens with a calm authority, her presence a source of comfort and stability. Lisa often wondered what Callie's life had been like before she arrived at her door. She imagined a world filled with challenges and uncertainty, a world that Callie had overcome with quiet resilience. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Lisa felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had found something she didn't even know she was searching for: a family. And in turn, she had given Callie and her kittens a home, a safe place where they could grow and thrive. The crisp air of autumn had given way to the chill of early winter, and Lisa found herself making small adjustments to keep her new companions comfortable. The once tiny kittens had grown into lively, energetic bundles of fur, filling the house with a warmth Lisa hadn't known in years. Every corner of her home seemed to echo with the sounds of paws skittering across the floor, the soft thuds of kittens pouncing on one another, and the occasional chirping meow from Callie. Lisa had fallen into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. Mornings began with the ritual of feeding the cats. Callie would sit patiently by the kitchen counter, her amber eyes fixed on Lisa as she prepared their meals. The kittens, however, were far less restrained. They swirled around Lisa's feet, their excitement palpable as they mewed and pawed at her legs. "Hold on, you little monsters," Lisa said with a laugh, carefully placing their bowls on the floor. Whisker was always the first to dive in, his head nearly disappearing into the bowl as he ate with gusto. Poppy would nibble delicately, her tiny nose twitching with each bite. Shadow waited for a moment, as if ensuring it was safe, before joining her siblings. As the weeks passed, Lisa noticed that Callie had begun spending more time outdoors. It wasn't unusual for the calico to disappear for a few hours at a time, only to return with her trademark gifts for Lisa. Leaves, twigs, and small trinkets often found their way to the doormat, each one a testament to Callie's gratitude, or perhaps her unique way of communicating. One day, Lisa discovered something extraordinary. Among the usual collection of leaves and feathers, there was a small, shiny object, a silver locket, its surface worn but still gleaming in the sunlight. Lisa picked it up, her fingers brushing over the intricate design etched into the metal. The locket felt heavier than she expected, and as she opened it, her breath caught. Inside was a tiny photograph, faded with age, of a young woman holding a calico cat that bore an uncanny resemblance to Callie. Lisa stared at the image, her mind racing. Could it be? Was this a piece of Callie's past? The locket raised more questions than it answered, but Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that it was significant. She placed it gently on the mantel, where it joined the growing collection of Callie's treasures. That evening, as Lisa sat by the fireplace, she found herself tracing the outline of the locket with her eyes. Callie was curled up on the armrest of the couch, her eyes half closed as she purred softly. The kittens were sprawled out on the rug, their tiny bodies rising and falling with the rhythm of their sleep. The scene was one of pure contentment, yet Lisa couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity and a hint of sadness about Callie's mysterious past. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Lisa said softly, glancing at the calico. Callie opened one eye, her gaze meeting Lisa's for a brief moment before she closed it again, her trust in Lisa evident in her relaxed posture. The next day, Lisa decided to take the locket to a local antique shop. She had passed the quaint little store countless times but had never ventured inside. The bell above the door jingled as she entered, and a kindly older man greeted her with a warm smile. "What can I help you with today?" he asked, his eyes twinkling behind a pair of round glasses. Lisa held out the locket. "I found this recently, and I was wondering if you could tell me anything about it." The man examined the locket carefully, his fingers tracing the design. "This is an old piece," he said after a moment, "probably from the early 1900s. The craftsmanship is exquisite. Where did you find it?" Lisa hesitated, unsure of how to explain. "It was left on my doorstep," she said finally. The man raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. "The photograph inside is remarkable," he said, holding the locket up to the light. "A piece like this often holds sentimental value. Whoever owned it must have cherished that cat deeply." Lisa nodded, her thoughts drifting to Callie. The locket felt like a puzzle piece, one that hinted at a life filled with love and perhaps loss. She thanked the man and left the shop, the locket safely tucked into her pocket. As she walked home, Lisa's mind buzzed with possibilities. What kind of life had Callie lived before finding her way to Lisa's door? Had she belonged to someone who loved her as much as Lisa did now? And what had happened to separate them? When Lisa returned home, she found Callie waiting on the porch, her tail flicking lazily as she watched the world go by. Lisa knelt down and scratched behind Callie's ears, her fingers brushing against the soft fur. "You're a mystery, you know that?" Lisa said, smiling. Callie responded with a soft chirp, nuzzling against Lisa's hand before trotting inside. That evening, as Lisa prepared dinner, she couldn't shake the feeling that Callie's arrival in her life had been more than just a coincidence. The calico had brought more than companionship. She had brought purpose, curiosity, and a sense of wonder that Lisa hadn't felt in years. The kittens, meanwhile, were thriving. Whisker had become the ringleader of their adventures, leading his siblings on daring expeditions through the house. Poppy had claimed a spot on Lisa's bed as her own, curling up beside Lisa each night. Shadow, though still cautious, had started to seek out Lisa's company more often, her quiet affection a stark contrast to her siblings' boisterous energy. One night, as Lisa sat on the couch with Callie in her lap, she felt a deep sense of peace. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting a warm glow over the room. The kittens were playing near the fireplace, their tiny shadows dancing on the walls. Callie purred contentedly, her body a comforting weight against Lisa's. Lisa stroked her fur, her fingers moving in slow, deliberate patterns. She thought about how much her life had changed since that fateful night when Callie and her kittens appeared at her door. What once felt like an endless stretch of quiet days had been transformed into a life filled with love and laughter. As Lisa closed her eyes, she felt a tear slip down her cheek, not from sadness, but from gratitude. Callie had given her a gift that was beyond measure, a second chance at happiness, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, life had a way of surprising her. Lisa whispered softly, "Thank you, Callie, for everything." Callie shifted slightly in Lisa's lap, her amber eyes meeting Lisa's for a brief moment. It was as if she understood, her purring growing louder in response. In that quiet, shared moment, Lisa knew that she and Callie were connected in a way that went beyond words. The first snowfall of the season blanketed the town, transforming the streets into a winter wonderland. Lisa stood at her kitchen window, watching as the flakes danced in the air, their soft descent covering the garden she had so lovingly tended in warmer months. She smiled as Poppy pressed her tiny nose against the glass, her breath fogging the pain as she stared in wide-eyed wonder at the white world outside. "You've never seen snow before, have you?" Lisa said, stroking Poppy's head. The kitten turned to her, letting out a soft meow, as if to ask for an explanation. Whisker was already pawing at the back door, his tail flicking with excitement. Shadow watched from a safe distance, her ears perked but her body rooted firmly in the warm safety of the living room. Callie, as usual, remained composed. She sat by the window, her amber eyes scanning the snowy landscape with quiet curiosity. Lisa had come to admire the mother cat's steady presence. No matter the situation, Callie exuded a calmness that seemed to reassure both Lisa and her kittens. Lisa decided it was time to introduce the kittens to the snow. She bundled herself up in a thick coat and scarf before opening the back door. Whisker was the first to step outside, his tiny paws sinking into the snow with a soft crunch. He paused, shaking one paw as if testing the strange, cold substance beneath him, before bounding forward with unrestrained enthusiasm. Poppy followed closely behind, her movements cautious but filled with curiosity. Shadow lingered at the doorway, her wide eyes darting between Lisa and her siblings. "It's okay, Shadow," Lisa said gently, crouching down and extending her hand. "You can do it." After a moment's hesitation, Shadow took a tentative step outside. Her paws barely touched the snow before she darted back inside, retreating to the warmth of the living room. Lisa laughed softly, shaking her head. "Baby steps," she murmured. Callie joined them outside, her movements graceful and deliberate. She padded through the snow, her fur standing out starkly against the white backdrop. Lisa watched as Callie circled the garden, her nose twitching as she took in the new scents carried by the crisp winter air. It was clear that Callie was always aware of her surroundings, her sharp instincts guiding her every move. As the kittens tumbled and played in the snow, Lisa felt a wave of warmth despite the cold. She hadn't realized how much joy they had brought into her life until moments like this, where their laughter, "If kittens could laugh," echoed through the garden. It was a sound she hadn't known she needed. Later that evening, as the fire crackled in the hearth and the kittens dozed on the rug, Lisa found herself thinking once again about the silver locket. It sat on the mantel, catching the light from the fire. She had spent hours turning it over in her hands, imagining the story behind it, but no answers had come. Her curiosity eventually drove her to action. Lisa decided to reach out to the local historical society, hoping they might have records or information that could shed light on the locket's origins. She sent an email with a photo of the locket and its contents, explaining how she had come to possess it. A few days later, she received a reply. The woman who responded, a historian named Evelyn, was intrigued by the locket and suggested meeting in person to discuss it further. Lisa agreed, her anticipation growing as the day of the meeting approached. The Historical Society's office was housed in an old stone building at the edge of town, its ivy-covered walls lending it an air of timelessness. Lisa felt a flutter of nerves as she stepped inside, the warmth of the interior a welcome contrast to the cold outside. Evelyn greeted her with a smile, her eyes lighting up as she saw the locket in Lisa's hand. "It's even more beautiful in person," she said, examining it closely. "You mentioned that it was left on your doorstep?" Lisa hesitated, unsure of how much to share. "Yes," she said finally. "It was left there by a cat." Evelyn raised an eyebrow but didn't question further. Instead, she turned her attention to the photograph inside the locket. "This image is fascinating," she said. "The style of dress suggests it's from the early 20th century. And the calico cat? It's almost uncanny, isn't it?" Lisa nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. Evelyn promised to research the locket further and contact Lisa if she discovered anything of significance. As Lisa left the Historical Society, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the verge of uncovering something important. Not just about the locket, but about Callie as well. Back at home, Lisa was greeted by the familiar sight of the kittens scampering to meet her at the door. Whisker leaped onto her lap as she sat down, his tiny paws kneading her sweater. Poppy and Shadow soon joined him, their soft purrs blending into a soothing chorus. Callie watched from her usual perch on the armrest of the couch. Her gaze was steady, almost knowing, as if she could sense that Lisa had taken another step toward understanding the mystery that surrounded her. Over the next few weeks, Lisa and Evelyn exchanged emails regularly. Evelyn had uncovered a few intriguing details about the locket, including records of a family that had lived in the area during the early 1900s. The family had owned a calico cat named Clementine, who was described in a diary entry as more human than cat, with eyes that seemed to see into your soul. The description sent a shiver down Lisa's spine. Clementine, the name echoed in her mind, carrying with it a strange sense of familiarity. Could Callie somehow be connected to this long-lost cat? The idea seemed impossible, yet Lisa couldn't dismiss it entirely. One snowy evening, as Lisa sat by the fire with Callie and the kittens, she found herself sharing the story with them as if they could understand. "Your name could have been Clementine," she said, scratching behind Callie's ears. "But I think Callie suits you better." Callie responded with a slow blink, her amber eyes glowing in the firelight. Lisa smiled, her heart full. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for certain. Callie and her kittens had brought her a happiness she hadn't thought possible. As the winter deepened, Lisa continued to care for her feline family, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. The kittens were no longer tiny bundles of fur but playful, mischievous young cats with personalities that filled every corner of the house. Whisker remained the fearless leader, his antics often leaving Lisa in stitches. Poppy had become Lisa's shadow, following her everywhere with an unwavering devotion. Shadow, though still quiet, had developed a surprising knack for sneaking into Lisa's bed at night, curling up beside her like a small, warm guardian. And Callie was the heart of it all. Her steady presence, her quiet wisdom, and her unwavering trust in Lisa had transformed the house into a home. One morning, as Lisa sipped her coffee and watched the snow fall outside, she realized how much her life had changed since the night Callie had appeared at her door. What had once been a quiet, solitary existence was now filled with love, laughter, and the pitter-patter of paws. Lisa whispered softly, "You saved me, Callie." The calico, perched on the windowsill, turned her head to look at Lisa. Her amber eyes seemed to glow with understanding, and in that moment, Lisa felt a connection so profound it brought tears to her eyes. Callie had chosen her, and in doing so, had given Lisa a gift beyond measure, the chance to feel whole again. The days grew shorter, and the snow piled high around Lisa's home, creating a serene, almost magical landscape. Despite the cold, warmth radiated from within her house, both in temperature and spirit. The kittens, now nearly full-grown, had taken to sprinting through the halls in what Lisa had dubbed their evening zoomies, a nightly ritual of playful chaos that left her laughing until her sides ached. Whisker, true to his adventurous nature, had found a new favorite pastime: scaling the curtains. Lisa often caught him halfway up, his mischievous face peeking out as if to say, "I dare you to stop me." Poppy, ever curious and determined to prove she was braver than her siblings, followed close behind, though her smaller frame made the climb more challenging. Shadow, predictably, remained on the ground, her wide eyes tracking her siblings' antics with a mixture of fascination and disdain. Callie, as always, observed from her perch on the windowsill, her tail curling and uncurling lazily as she watched her kittens with a quiet pride. Lisa often wondered what went through Callie's mind in those moments. Did she recognize how much she had given Lisa by simply choosing her door that night? Or was she simply content to see her kittens thriving? Lisa's bond with Callie had deepened in ways she hadn't thought possible. It wasn't just the way Callie seemed to understand her moods, appearing beside her during moments of sadness or curling up in her lap during quiet evenings. It was the unspoken trust that had grown between them, a connection that felt almost sacred. One particularly cold morning, Lisa woke to find the kittens sprawled across her bed. Whisker was stretched out like a miniature lion, his paws dangling off the edge of the mattress. Poppy was curled into a tight ball near Lisa's feet, while Shadow had nestled herself against Lisa's side, her soft purring a gentle hum that lulled Lisa into a rare sense of peace. Callie, however, was nowhere to be found. Lisa's brow furrowed as she slipped out of bed, careful not to disturb the kittens. It wasn't like Callie to stray far, especially during the colder months. Wrapping herself in a thick robe, Lisa padded into the living room, where the faint glow of the fireplace illuminated the shadows. The house was silent, save for the faint crackle of the fire. "Callie," Lisa called softly, her voice carrying a note of worry. A soft chirp answered her from the kitchen. Lisa followed the sound and found Callie sitting by the back door, her amber eyes fixed intently on something outside. Lisa approached, her breath catching as she saw what had captured Callie's attention. In the snow, just beyond the garden gate, stood another cat. Its coat was a deep gray, almost blending with the shadows of the early morning. The cat's eyes were wide, reflecting the faint light from the kitchen window. It didn't move, its body tense with a mixture of caution and curiosity. Callie let out another chirp, her tail flicking as she glanced back at Lisa. There was a familiarity in the way Callie interacted with the gray cat, as though they had met before. Lisa crouched beside Callie, her eyes narrowing as she tried to make sense of the scene. "Is this someone you know?" Lisa murmured, half to herself. The gray cat took a cautious step forward, its paw sinking into the snow. Callie remained still, her gaze unwavering. Lisa felt a pang of emotion as she watched the interaction. Was this another stray seeking shelter? Or was it something more? Lisa opened the back door slowly, the cold air rushing in and making her shiver. Callie stepped outside immediately, her movements graceful and deliberate. The gray cat froze, its ears flattening slightly, but it didn't run. Callie approached the cat with a calm confidence, her nose twitching as she sniffed the air between them. For a moment, the two cats simply stared at each other, their communication silent but profound. Then, in a gesture that startled Lisa, Callie turned and looked back at her, letting out a soft meow. It was as if she were asking Lisa to trust her. Lisa hesitated. She had no idea what to make of the situation, but Callie had never steered her wrong. Taking a deep breath, she stepped back inside and left the door ajar. Callie led the gray cat toward the house, their steps careful and deliberate. When they crossed the threshold, the gray cat paused, its body still tense. "Welcome," Lisa said softly, her voice carrying the same gentle tone she had used with Callie on that first night. The gray cat remained cautious but didn't retreat. Lisa guided them toward the living room, where the warmth of the fire greeted them. The kittens, now awake, watched the newcomer with wide eyes. Whisker was the first to approach, his tail wagging slightly as he sniffed at the gray cat. Poppy followed close behind, her curiosity outweighing her usual hesitation. Shadow stayed near Lisa, her body low to the ground as she observed from a safe distance. Callie sat nearby, her amber eyes fixed on the gray cat as though she were offering silent reassurance. The gray cat eventually relaxed, its body settling onto the rug near the fireplace. Lisa felt a wave of relief wash over her. "You've got a good friend in Callie," Lisa said, addressing the gray cat. "If she trusts you, then so do I." As the hours passed, the gray cat grew more comfortable, its wariness giving way to curiosity. Lisa noticed small details about the cat, the faint scars on its ears, the way its coat seemed slightly matted, as though it had been living outdoors for a long time. She wondered what kind of life the gray cat had led before finding its way to her door. By evening, the gray cat had claimed a spot near the fireplace, its body stretched out in a pose of pure contentment. Callie sat beside it, her presence a steadying force. Lisa watched them from the couch, her heart swelling with a mixture of joy and gratitude. Once again, Callie had brought something unexpected into her life. Another soul in need of care, another thread in the tapestry of her newfound family. Over the next few days, the gray cat, whom Lisa decided to name Ash, began to integrate into the household. The kittens accepted Ash with surprising ease, their playful energy coaxing the older cat out of its shell. Ash, in turn, seemed to take on a protective role, often sitting near the kittens as they played, its watchful eyes ensuring their safety. Lisa marveled at how seamlessly Ash fit into their lives. It was as though Callie had known all along that there was room for one more, that their little family wasn't quite complete without Ash. Lisa couldn't help but wonder if there was a story behind their connection, a history that only Callie and Ash understood. One evening, as Lisa sat by the fire with all 5 cats gathered around her, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The house that had once been filled with silence was now alive with the sounds of purring, playful meows, and the occasional thud of paws on the floor. Lisa realized that her life had changed in ways she hadn't thought possible. "You've turned this place into a home," Lisa said softly, her gaze sweeping over the cats. Callie, as if understanding the sentiment, stretched out beside Lisa, her purring a steady hum of contentment. Lisa leaned back, her eyes drifting to the silver locket on the mantel. It gleamed in the firelight, a reminder of the mystery that had brought Callie into her life. As she stroked Callie's fur, Lisa whispered, "Thank you for finding me." The winter snow had begun to melt, giving way to the tentative warmth of early spring. Lisa's home, once a quiet haven of solitude, now brimmed with life. The kittens, now fully grown, had become independent and confident, their personalities shining more brightly than ever. Whisker had taken on the role of the household clown, constantly finding ways to amuse himself and everyone else. Poppy, still Lisa's little shadow, followed her everywhere, often curling up in her lap as Lisa worked or read. Shadow, though more reserved than her siblings, had developed a quiet boldness, often surprising Lisa with her sudden bursts of affection. Ash had fully integrated into the family, his once wary demeanor replaced by a calm, protective presence. He seemed to have taken it upon himself to watch over the others, often positioning himself where he could keep an eye on everyone at once. Lisa marveled at the dynamic within the group, how each cat had carved out their place in the household, creating a harmonious balance that felt almost magical. Callie, of course, remained the heart of it all. Her steady presence, her quiet wisdom, and her unwavering trust in Lisa had become the foundation of their little family. Lisa often found herself watching Callie, wondering about the journey that had brought her to Lisa's door. The silver locket still sat on the mantel, a symbol of the unanswered questions that lingered in Lisa's mind. One sunny afternoon, Lisa received an email from Evelyn at the Historical Society. The subject line read, "Update on the locket." Lisa's heart raced as she opened the message. Evelyn had found more records about the family who had owned the locket. The young woman in the photograph, whose name was Eleanor, had been a schoolteacher who lived in the area during the early 1900s. According to Evelyn's research, Eleanor had been deeply attached to her calico cat, Clementine, and the two were said to have been inseparable. What struck Lisa the most was a passage from one of Eleanor's diary entries, which Evelyn had transcribed. "Clementine is more than a cat to me. She is a companion, a guardian, and a constant reminder of the beauty of connection. In her eyes, I see a reflection of my own soul." The words resonated deeply with Lisa. She thought about Callie, about the connection they had formed, and how much her life had changed since that fateful night. Could it be possible that Callie was somehow connected to Clementine? The idea seemed far-fetched, yet Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that there was something extraordinary about Callie's presence in her life. Inspired by Evelyn's findings, Lisa decided to visit the location where Eleanor's house had once stood. The house itself was long gone, replaced by a small park with a few benches and flower beds. Lisa brought Callie with her, feeling a strange sense of anticipation as she walked through the park. Callie, as always, seemed calm and composed, her amber eyes scanning the surroundings with quiet curiosity. They stopped by a bench near a cluster of blooming daffodils. Lisa sat down, holding Callie in her lap, and let the soft breeze wash over her. She closed her eyes and tried to imagine what the place might have looked like over a century ago. She pictured Eleanor sitting on a porch, Clementine by her side, their bond as unbreakable as the one Lisa now shared with Callie. As Lisa opened her eyes, she noticed Callie staring intently at the daffodils. The calico stepped off Lisa's lap and padded over to the flowers, her nose twitching as she sniffed the air. Lisa watched, her heart swelling with emotion. It was as if Callie felt a connection to the place, as if she, too, was drawn to the echoes of the past. That evening, back at home, Lisa found herself reflecting on everything that had happened since Callie's arrival. The silver locket, the mysterious bond between Callie and Ash, the way the kittens had brought joy and laughter back into her life. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle she was slowly piecing together. Lisa decided to start documenting the story. She pulled out a notebook and began to write, her pen moving across the pages as she recounted the night Callie had appeared at her door, the way the kittens had grown and thrived, and the profound sense of purpose and connection that had blossomed in her life. As she wrote, Callie curled up beside her, her soft purring providing a soothing background melody. The days turned into weeks, and spring arrived in full bloom. Lisa's garden, which had been dormant during the winter, burst to life with vibrant colors. The cats loved spending time outside, their playful energy infusing the garden with even more vitality. Whisker had claimed a spot under the lilac bush as his personal hideout, while Poppy preferred to lounge on the sun-warmed stones near the flower beds. Shadow, true to her cautious nature, stayed close to the house, often curling up in a patch of sunlight near the back door. Ash remained the watchful guardian, his steady presence a source of comfort for everyone. One afternoon, as Lisa tended to the garden, she noticed Callie sitting at the edge of the yard, her gaze fixed on something in the distance. Lisa followed her line of sight and saw a group of children playing in the neighboring yard. Callie's posture was relaxed, but her eyes held a softness that Lisa recognized as affection. "You miss something, don't you?" Lisa said softly, kneeling beside Callie. "Or someone." Callie turned to look at Lisa, her amber eyes meeting Lisa's with an intensity that took her breath away. It was a look that seemed to say, "I found what I was looking for." Lisa reached out and stroked Callie's fur, her fingers moving gently along the calico's back. "And so have I," Lisa whispered. That evening, as the sun set and the house settled into its usual rhythm, Lisa found herself thinking about the future. She had started this chapter of her life with a sense of loneliness she hadn't wanted to admit, but now, her home was filled with love and connection. The cats had given her a sense of purpose, a reason to wake up each morning with a smile. As she sat by the fire with all 5 cats gathered around her, Lisa felt a deep sense of gratitude. She thought about the journey that had brought them all together, the struggles, the mysteries, and the moments of joy that had made her house a home. Lisa glanced at the silver locket on the mantel, its surface catching the light from the fire. She still didn't have all the answers, but she realized she didn't need them. What mattered was the here and now, the life she had built with Callie, Ash, Whisker, Poppy, and Shadow. They were her family, her heart, her reason to believe in the unexpected beauty of life. Callie stretched out beside her, her purring a soft, steady hum that filled the room. Lisa leaned back, her hand resting on Callie's warm fur, and let the peace of the moment wash over her. "Thank you for choosing me," Lisa whispered. "Thank you for everything." Callie blinked slowly, her eyes glowing with the warmth of understanding. And in that quiet, shared moment, Lisa knew that she and Callie were exactly where they were meant to be, together, surrounded by love, in a home that had been waiting for them both.